All right. Thank you all very much for being here for the Tennessee State School Bond Authority meeting of July 26, 2022. I will say welcome to the Comptroller's Volunteer Conference Center for those of you who are here for the first time. These in keeping with the updated statute, this meeting is being video broadcast and recorded to live for all time on the Comptroller's website. So that's important to remember. We do have a physical quorum present today. And I believe we have Luke Librand. Are you with us today online?
Yes, Chair Mumpower.
Yes, okay. In that we do have electronic participation, I will ask Sandy Thompson if you'll call the roll.
Luke Librand.
Present.
Alicia Fox. Present. Commissioner Bryson.
Here.
Comptroller Mumpower.
Here.
Secretary Hargett.
Here.
Treasurer Lillard.
Here. And I will note we have a designee we have not had before. Welcome. Do you want to tell us about yourself just real quick?
Sure. My name is Alicia Fox. I am the new Vice Chancellor of Business and Finance for the Tennessee Board of Regents. I come into that role from Cleveland State.
Very good. Thank you very much. I will ask members, if you're online, to go ahead and mute your phone. Luke, you may want to mute your phone and then unmute it for the purpose of voting, if you will. Members, as we get started today, I would like to say, just in kind of a housekeeping way, last year during the audit of the Comptroller's office, it was noted and addressed that the assumed rate of interest that is used in feasibility analysis to calculate and compare the maximum annual debt service to the projected revenues that are to be pledged to cover the debt service on the project. There has been discussion regarding the rates that have been used in the current interest rate environment. The rates used to calculate maximum annual debt service and the feasibility analysis will remain the same for now. However, they will be evaluated periodically as we monitor interest rate changes in the capital markets, especially in this crazy world we're living in these days. So I do want to say that for the record. First official item of business on our agenda today is approval of the minutes from the TSSBA meeting of June 15th, 2022. Members, I hope you've seen those in your packet, had a chance to review them. Unless there's any, first off, let me say, do we have a motion? Have a motion and a second to approve the items. And unless there's any questions or discussions, Sandy, I'll ask you to call the roll again for the approval of the minutes.
Luke Librand.
Aye.
Alicia Fox. Aye. Commissioner Bryson.
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower.
Aye.
Secretary Hargett. Treasurer Lillard.
Very good. The item is approved. The next item on the agenda today is the annual review of the Tennessee State School Bond Authority debt policy. Sandy Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you know, we have reviewed the debt management policies for all of our issuing authorities in the office, which includes the State Funding Board and the TLDA. We've also reviewed the debt policy for the Tennessee State School Bond Authority. And we also have circulated it to staff as well and the AG's office and have asked for any kinds of revisions or comments. At this time, we do not have any, but we would like and we would hope that the board would acknowledge the fact that we have annually reviewed this policy.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions or comments? There's no action required, but we will acknowledge that review and thank you for it. The next item on the agenda today is consideration and approval of the resolution to approve the borrowing of money by another method for the University of Memphis. I see Tony Poteet, you're at the podium. You're recognized.
Chairman, members of the board, give them request consideration of a lease amendment for 92 beds of student housing with the Gather, which is an apartment complex located adjacent to our campus. The term is 3 years with 2 optional years. And this aligns with our February ESC waiver advertisement for 300 beds and our subsequent lease approval for 208 beds from the same apartment complex. This will give us additional apartment-style beds for increasing out-of-state enrollment. And the cost is less than what we currently charge for these similar types of units. And we don't see any problem with leasing up the beds.
Very good. Members, we have a motion or a second. Let's have a motion and a second, we'll move to discussion. Properly moved, properly seconded. Treasurer, you're recognized.
Okay, tell me about the economics of this from the university standpoint. Covering the cost of this from the room rental, is that what you're doing?
Yes, sir. We definitely, actually, the students pay their fees at the start of the semester, and we'll be paying this out monthly to the lessor. So we have to add a small surcharge to what we're paying to cover administrative costs. But it's good for our enrollment, keep students, retain students, and we will have 70% of the beds in this two-building complex. And so we'll be able to provide the security, the RAs, and the guidance that students need. So their experience is just like an on-campus student housing.
You won't be using plant funds or other university funds?
No, sir, we do not see any need to do that. We already have 225 students that have committed for this. So we still got a month or so before the semester starts. If in the event we had any problem, we can terminate this lease at the end of next spring semester. And also anytime a student at a election, they withdraw from school, stop paying ed. So we're not doing a lot.
For all of you online, if you would please mute your phone. We're having quite a bit of feedback. Thank you. Treasurer.
One of the questions is, Gather, that's a unitary building, one building.
It's two buildings. They were built like a year apart by the same owner. The original owner has now sold it to an owner that owns both units. So we have one building will be fully ours from the first lease, and then this lease will take up a good majority of the other building.
Southern Avenue.
Yes, sir. They're in Patterson. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Treasurer. What about other questions? Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I was going to ask about the financials. The treasurer covered that. And I was trying to look through here and I don't see it. Maybe it's here. Is this close to campus for the students?
Yes, sir. It's basically on campus. It's directly across the railroad tracks from the main administration building and all of our academic buildings. And our parking lots sandwich these apartment units. So the students that live there actually park in our parking lot.
The students can walk across if they need to go
Yes, sir.
eat or
Very
go to
walkable.
class or whatever.
No need for a car.
That and the financials were my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? If not, seeing no further discussion, Sandy, I'll ask you to call the roll in regard to this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Luke Lybrand.
Aye.
Fox. Commissioner Bryson.
Aye.
Comptroller.
Aye.
Secretary Hargit.
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard.
Thank you very much. The item is approved. Members, on your agenda, next you will see a list of 12 items. You have 11 proposed lease agreements and one proposed use agreement, all related to Tennessee State University. Without objection, I'd like to ask that we take all of these at once for the purposes of discussion. I think we have a long list of questions, and we have a great group of folks here in person and online to field the questions and present. So for the purpose of taking up these 12 items, again, 11 lease agreement proposals and one use agreement proposal, I'll make a motion that we take those up for discussion.
Second.
Properly seconded. Thank you. With that being said, would like to invite, I know online we have President Dr. Glenda Glover. Glad to see you. I understand you're online for a good reason today. What's that reason?
My daughter had twins, and so I'm here assisting. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
We're glad to have you online with us. I think online as well, we have Allison Lecter, Associate General Counsel. We have Lawrence Pendleton, General Counsel. Are all three of you online? Yes.
I'm online. Thank you.
In the room with us, do we have Douglas Allen, VP for Business and Finance? Come on down to the table if you want to. Curtis Johnson, Chief of Staff, come on down. Frank Stevenson, Dean of Students. Frank, come on down. And Terrence Izzard.
Terrence says that he's joined us via. Teams.
Okay, Terrence, are you online as well?
Yes.
Very good. Very good. Thank you very much. Members, we're here today. It looks like to talk about the potential lease agreements and use agreements for a variety of hotel space and other types of space that might be needed to address student housing. If you want to, Dr. Glover or anyone else, if you want to kind of sum up for us why we're here today with this request.
Well, good afternoon, and to the members of the board, thank you for allowing us to be a part of this agenda today. We appreciate you working with the university and working through this unprecedented housing challenge at TSU. All challenges are not bad challenges. And TSU right now is on the center stage. We're on the national scene, getting good publicity, good positive news. The Vice President of the United States was our commencement speaker. I am serving with President Biden as Vice Chair of one of President Biden's most popular boards, the Advisory Board on HBCUs. So TSU has been able to create some very strategic corporate partners. So as a result, many families are noticing TSU, students are noticing TSU, they're wanting to attend TSU. So we're here today because we have an increase in the number of students desiring to live on campus. And that presents two topics of discussion. One is student enrollment has increased dramatically for the first-time freshmen. At this point, we have at least 2,000 freshmen who've already registered. We have many others who are still to be registered, still waiting to be registered. So that brings us to our second problem. So many of us are aware of or have heard about the remarkable growth in Nashville and the increase in the cost of housing here in Nashville. So for many students who would normally reside off campus, they're now forced to seek housing back on campus because they can't afford to live in the apartments, because in Nashville, the rent has gone up 8.37% last year. And the average cost of just a studio apartment off campus was $1,644. So that compares to Memphis and Knoxville, where the rent increases were 4.5%. The average cost of a studio apartment was just under $1,000 per month. This is our reality that we're dealing with. So we don't want to tell any student you're on your own. And for our population, these students, if they're told you're on your own to find your housing, they're more likely to go home and not come back. Some have even shared this with us, that they'll just return home and take a gap year, similar to what they did during COVID. So they may choose to go home and sit out a whole semester or a year. And our literature shows that if you miss that first semester, you're about 2/3% more likely not to return at all. So given that, we know that's inconsistent with the TSU mission, the mission of our state, and is inconsistent with our Drive to 55. So we're seeking to support the students and assist in providing housing. Bringing us to why we're here today. We're seeking your support as we try to support our students and student success. You have information in front of you. However, that information was presented to you based on our previous discussions between us and your staff, and the numbers reflect that discussion. But those are our upper limits. So we've continued to sharpen our pencils. We've been seeking ways to cut costs, how to reduce these expenses, as well as to reduce the number of hotels in which we seek to house the students. So we have a much lesser number today, and we're offering alternatives to our students. One, online students, we want you, that in and of itself is a reduced cost to the students. And then we're looking at putting 3 students in a room, so we costed that out. But students have indicated they would like to have reduction in their fees, and that reduction can come by having a 3rd person in the rooms. Only ones that are large enough for that. Some of the residence halls will not accommodate that. Then there's some other alternatives like the family homes, the rooming houses, modular homes. So there are some other things we're reviewing. So I'm going to ask Mr. Doug Allen, who's Vice President for Business and Finance, to just discuss the costs that we're presenting today, which have been reduced. Doug.
Thank you, Madam President.
Recognized if you'll state your name and title for the record, please.
So will, thank you. Douglas Allen, Vice President and CFO, Tennessee State University.
Thank you. You're recognized.
Thank you all for your time this afternoon. Just a couple of things that I would like to note, as the president mentioned about sharpening the pencils. The information that was brought to you all today summed the total just a little over $40 million. That's including the hotel leases, the House of God, and then the ancillary costs associated with moving students to and from the hotels. Since then, and actually, let me back up. One thing I want to we looked at the worst case scenario. And as the CFO, I have to look at the worst case scenario. With that being said, there were questions that were brought to us that we were answering throughout several sessions up to getting to this point. As it relates to our fund balance for our plant funds. And as of today, our gross plant fund is $51,131,425. That's broken down into 2 pots. The unexpended plant funds, $37,421,653. And the renewal and replacement, or R&R, is $13,709,771. We do have commitments against a portion of the unexpended plant funds. We currently have 12 projects that are underway at this time that total $8,652,818. We did work closely with the Tennessee Board of Regents, one of their staff members, to confirm and verify our outstanding obligations that are committed against our current unexpended plant fund. That leaves us with an unexpended plant fund of $28,768,836. A portion of the revenues would be generated from, of course, the students living in the hotels. That would generate just a little over $16 million. The remaining of that would come then from the use of our unexpended plant fund. And once we back out the commitments, we are able then to cover those costs in totality, given that that's the worst case scenario.
And what a dollar amount do you think that would be required to be taken from your plant funds?
So from the plant fund, we are looking at just a little over $21 million.
Well, that would leave about 7.
Leave about $7 million in unexpended plant. Yeah.
Yes. I believe your director of enrollment is online, but here we are on July the 26th, probably 3 weeks from students beginning to arrive and needing this housing. It's a great thing that you got this surging enrollment, especially when we see enrollment declining at other universities potentially. Question for your director of enrollment. What is we're just hearing about this. As you all know, those of us on this board that are charged with approving this before it ever goes to the state building commission are just kind of learning about this. At some point in time, you had to know that you were filling up fast, and I'm sure you were overjoyed at that, but you also had to know you were running out of room to place these students. what has your enrollment management plan been? What has your strategy been? And is your enrollment, are you closed to enrollment today, or is it still open?
This is Terrence Izzard, Associate Vice President for Enrollment Management. Thank you for that question. In terms of our enrollment today, enrollment for the fall is closed. Students who have applied or who are interested, and we still have quite a few students who are interested in coming to TSU, they're being advised to enroll for spring 2022 or fall 2020, I'm sorry, spring 2023 or fall 2023. Or they can take an option of taking classes online. In regards to our enrollment strategy, we have a very simple process for students who come through the enrollment process. They will apply, and then they will be admitted after receiving their documentation and going through the admissions process, and then they step into the enrollment phase. And students then confirm their intent to enroll. That's the first step. And then the second step is for them to complete their housing application and also be advised for classes. And then students have to pay a deposit. So what's interesting about this year, as you heard our president mention, the media attention just from a lot of the positive feedback. And then we've got a lot of new programs that have been added. As we received application data and interest, we did see our numbers go up. However, students don't begin to pay their housing deposit until March 1. And so as we saw those housing deposits begin to come in throughout this spring, we closely monitor the housing application and then match those deposits. And so that's our strategy. We learned this year, even as we saw the increase, we learned that students, can express interest, complete their intent to enroll, and also request a housing reservation. But until their deposit has come in, then we don't count that student as fully committed until they pay their enrollment fees.
Thank you. So with that being said, when will you know an exact number of students who need housing on and off campus?
The information that you have now is a more accurate number because these are based off of students who have actually paid a housing deposit and a registration fee, their enrollment fee. So what you have now is the actual, and housing applications are closed from this point forward.
And you did ask the question about, when do we know this? And we're looking at our past trends. In the past, 27% of students who applied or who were accepted came to TSU, anywhere between a 4th and 30%. Now, this year, it's well into the 40% range. And so that increase in the number of students who chose TSU has also contributed to it. We based it on our stats from the prior years, and we did bump it up a little this year, but we didn't bump it an extra, 10%.
Thank you. Mr. Izzard, back to you. A question. As I look at this list of hotels that you've worked to procure, it would be less than forthright if we didn't acknowledge that some of them are in areas of town that experience higher rates of crime and things like that. From an enrollment perspective, if you have a freshman student come down and looking forward to a great experience on campus and are placed in a hotel some great distance from your campus, like out by Opryland or Comfort Suites, Goodlettsville, or out by the airport or in an area of town that's known to have a higher rate of crime, how is that going to affect their reality and desire to attend once they get here and are placed there?
Frank?
I can defer to,
That problem is Frank Stevenson, Associate Vice President of Student Affairs and Dean of Students. Thank you for that question. A couple of things. One is, as VP Allen mentioned, that we have some folks we expect to fall off this list. So we're doing some measures to bring students back on campus. Further out that are in spaces that we think may be a little bit more risky will be the first ones we roll off. Those are the first ones we're going to bring students back. We're not having freshmen stay in these hotels. We're very intentional about putting freshmen on campus. You know, our experience.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. For those of you online, if you will, please mute your phone. We're having a whole lot of feedback in the room. Thank you very much.
I'll repeat that last sentence. So we're not putting freshmen. We know that there's a opportunity for more vulnerability with that population of students. So we're not putting them off campus. We're putting them on campus places. We had a little bit of experience with this at the hotel last year, and we had our police department run a security plan on the building. The good thing about these spaces is that we're occupying, for the most part, the entire buildings. And so we can secure all of that space and be responsible. Last year, we even put a fence around the entire hotel in agreement with the hotel, which allowed us to control access. So we walked through the access components of it. We've had our police department continue to do a security plan. So we take security really seriously. We're going to have armed staff. We're going to have our police officers as a part of this team. We've included that amount in this budget projection to make sure that the students are safe and also to make sure that they have a collegiate experience. We want them to have an experience. We want to hire staff to create that experience even in those spaces.
Chairman, if I may.
Sure. Yes, you're recognized.
So as part of your all's package, there was a priority list ranging 1 through 12, in the House of God to fully have that capacity going down to number 12, the Candlewood Suites. Again, we've worked over the last several days, long days, to really look at cutting this list. As the president mentioned, a few things to note, possibly putting 3 students per room in particular residence halls that will help reduce some of that cost. And also, we've had a lot of interest in students that would like to do 100% online. So we've offered that opportunity and that option to the students as well. So we see that as reducing that cost also. So again, based on the worst case scenario that was given, that was needing beds for 2,090 students, we have that projection to be more around 1,350 students that will need hotels for. So that would, based on the priority, that would be a plan then to remove the last 5 hotels from the equation.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question, then I'm going to open it up to my colleagues because actually I have a lot more than one question, but I don't want to keep asking questions when I know the others do as well. But let me tell you what it boils down to me primarily. And I say this as an officer of the legislature and as a former legislator. If we were to approve this and recognize this burgeoning enrollment, we would do so welcoming these students to Tennessee and Tennessee State University, and we would do so in a spirit of wanting them to be successful. And in wanting them to be successful, when we accept them first, we're saying, we want you back next year. Now, if I'm doing my simple math here in regard to the plant funds you have available, if this same class of students that we welcome this year want to come back next year, you're not going to have any new dorm space and you're going to need more hotel, or at least as many hotel leases, but you're not going to have any money anymore. So it creates, if we approve this today, it creates a fait accompli that the governor's budget or the legislature's budget next year is going to have to include some 21 million or more dollars to fund this kind of housing. And that is something that's heavy on my mind when I think about approving this right here, because having been a legislator and now as an officer of the legislature, it's not necessarily for me to create, future expenses for them without them having a chance to review that or think about that. So what would you all say to that?
Well, let me say this. Putting students in the hotel is our most costly option, right? It's a quick fix. It's a Band-Aid. We don't want to do that long term. We don't want to do that again next year. Matter of fact, we want to pull those students back out of those hotels in January. So we're already working on a plan that we think in 6 months, we'll be able to do some things that will allow us to house those students in a much cheaper cost and house them very close to our campus. So
Where in the world would you house them in 6 months, let alone next year? I mean, that sounds great, but where would that be?
yeah, so we're in some negotiations and talking to some folk who got some property close by. We have a conversation that we're having right now. It's a modular homes that can be put up really, really quickly in some space that we have. It's much cheaper, much cheaper. We could use it for a time period that allows us to get some dorms up. And we think we can have those in place in 6 months. But that's for future conversation, or at least one to get your appetite that we're thinking.
Thank you. Members, I'm going to stop and open it up. And what about y'all? Commissioner?
I have a couple of questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you all. First of all, congratulations on the interest in the university. I think that's really super. And also on the twins, that's also an exciting time. The money is I'm Commissioner of Finance, right? So the money is what I'm also wondering about too. So, if you're going to be on the hook for the whole amount, if you go into these contracts, because I was looking at the contract, goes through May 5th. So if you put them in January, right?
No.
Can you cut this in
Yeah,
half?
we have a 30-day out.
Okay. All right. So there's a 30-day out. So you can potentially reduce some of this if you spend the money for the modular homes. Where would those funds come from?
In the reduction, some of it would come from in the reduction of not having to pay for the hotel space.
Okay. So it would come from the same pot of money, essentially.
Just not
You would just be moving the money over to modular.
Nowhere near as much.
As well as our foundation, tissue foundation.
Okay, the foundation would do what? Would pay for the modular homes?
Yes, the foundation will assist with the modular homes.
You know what that cost is by any chance? Just
Yes, the cost for the modular homes is approximately $12 million.
and how many would that be? How many beds?
So that was 800 beds.
800 beds. Well, so you're still going to be, it's going to be, and the foundation can do all of that?
The university will do some in the foundation and also.
Okay, so there'll be a mix.
Yeah.
Mix of dollars.
And,
Okay.
and not to interrupt, but playing
Okay.
off the commissioner's question, those modular homes will be placed on land currently owned outright by the university.
Yes, yes.
And is that land adjacent to the university? So it's more of a campus university?
Yes.
It's more than likely over where their apartments are now. We're looking at two different, Dr. Johnson may want to talk about, there are 2 or 3 different locations. The flattest part of it is over where the apartments are now, right on campus.
We have several green spaces that we modified to accommodate these modular units, along with external parking.
Have you all started this process yet?
Gotcha.
Do you know about how many of these students will be out of state? I don't have any idea. Do you all know that? Out of state students
They're saying,
in the hotels?
no, I get that breakdown.
I would have a question about that, just because we would essentially expending the state funds for this is what we're doing. Come out of your plant fund.
Overall, we have around 30% that are out of state students. That number grew during a little bit more during the pandemic when many students took classes online. So I don't have the number. I'm sure Mr. Izzard has it better for now, but it's in the low 30s. It should be in the low 30s. We market very heavily to Tennessee students, very heavily.
Thank you, Commissioner. Further questions? Well, okay, I'll go back to me then. Talk about the modular housing. I mean, we have things like cost of site development and utilities that you'll need there. Of course, a lot of prep. And you talked about the plant funds. Are those auxiliary plant funds only?
No, it's auxiliary is the major source of the plant.
Okay. And to your knowledge, and I would have to go back and look, are you sure those funds are unobligated, and are you sure those funds are able to be used in this manner?
Again, we've been in touch with Tennessee Board of Regents, a member there. We actually verified exactly what that number.
Yes. Yes, we've been with the Board of Regents to make sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one other comment. If you
Commissioner.
don't mind, one other thought. You said you haven't started this. I just know from what we're doing with construction, I know it's hard right now, especially in Nashville, to get new projects started, much less completed in 6 months. So that's just a variable. I don't know if you all have looked at that yet. I think that's going to be really tough.
We have looked at it, and basically these particular modular units will, of course, power and sewer and water, but a platform, 4 to 5 inch platform for them to sit on, pretty much. And they're running off of just 220 current, so they're not requiring a whole lot, and they don't have kitchens.
So best case scenario, I guess, is let's say you were able to cut the 21 million in half, right? So you'd be looking at somewhere around 10.5 million plus the 12 for the modular home. So you're still out. Sorry, the math, 23, right? 23 or so out of your 28.
And again, as the president mentioned, our foundation would cover some of that
Some
cost
of
as well. And please note, with the modular homes, these would actually be assets to the university, which are essentially assets to the state of Tennessee.
Sure.
Based on our calculations, it would take approximately 3 semesters to pay those off. Okay, so again, we understand that the ask of today was worst case scenario. But again, we come back to the table and looking at those, how can we reduce those costs again through looking at the modular homes being a major initiative for us. Can it be done in 6 months? Yes, absolutely, you can. It would be phased in, but again, that would be support from the state of Tennessee.
Is the new dorm opening this fall? So this is in addition to that.
Yes. Again, as the president said, it's a good problem to have, but the students we serve, they're important to us. They're important to the state of Tennessee.
And the new dorms, the new residence halls were, they went really quickly. It was such a great recruitment tool. The students were just waiting to hear to get the nod, and so it's full. So we have 3,650 beds. We have 5,500. Is what they were asking for. So we got that number down to 1,300. So, and then that's where we are now. So if we take off several of the hotels, what would be the new number, Doug? If we take off those hotels we're talking about, we did have a conversation with Sandy this morning to see if we should revise it with you and send you new information. And based on our conversation, she pretty much thought it best for us to keep it the way it is and not revise it downwardly like we'd already done. We would revise it downwardly, but she said it was probably best not to do it at that late date because we just finished it. Just go ahead and present the worst case scenario now, then talk through where we really will end up. And we think we'll end up at somewhere about half the numbers we're talking about.
Dr. Glover, I think I heard you say just a minute ago, or Mr. Allen, maybe it was you, that in regard to the plant funds, you had verified those numbers for the Tennessee Board of Regents. Who did you work with there?
Tammy Grissom.
Tammy Grissom? Sandy, in you and your team's review of the numbers as presented, is it your thoughts that if this $21 million was expended from the plant funds, that would not improperly touch money that's committed to other projects?
I would just have to see a breakdown in that fund, just to show that. So I have not seen that yet. I've just seen, numerous numbers that are in there that represent balances for certain projects and so forth. There's a lot of debits and credits, so I would just like to see those.
I know THEC is represented here, Lou and Patty. I think you all are here. Would you all want to roll your chairs on down? We didn't know this first meeting was going to be a capacity crowd. Bring your own chair. Just quickly for you, does THEC have any thoughts about this? Do you think that, I believe I'm quoting it directly when my understanding is that for leases over $50,000, that it requires notification or THEC involvement. Have you all been involved in this, and do you have any thoughts on the situation?
Well, so answer the first part of the question first. I'm Lou Hanneman with the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. So our first real awareness of this response to the housing issue came really as the staff call was being prepared ahead of this meeting, so last week. And so that was the first opportunity we had to begin looking not just at the plan, but also to see the leases and to see the list of hotels and so forth. So we're still kind of catching up, much in the same way you all are. As to, the appropriateness of the response, is this the viable option? That's a difficult place to put the state in. To your point earlier, we want to accommodate students. We want students to come here and be successful here, and then of course stay here. But we also have realities about the housing capacity at TSU. And to put students in a position where they're 45 minutes away from campus is a difficult proposition. We had someone on our staff go out and, view some of the properties around town. And we do have some concerns about the security measures that would be necessary, transportation obstacles, given the different times of day students would need to come to and from campus, how this plays into meal plans. And, a lot of our students and college campuses now are dealing with food insecurity, and so they rely on those meal plans substantially. It's been mentioned several times, the timing of the housing deposits. Are any of these students on financial aid where room and board is being considered? We've heard anecdotally of several, recruitment efforts around the state that, made it clear that housing would be provided in a financial aid package. I'm not sure where all that plays into the numbers that have been presented here. All that to say, we just don't know enough about the substance of the leases and what their, the long-term implications are for this to make any kind of substantive approval per SBC policy. And so, really, our review is just beginning.
Anything to add?
I don't really, other than just looking at the master plan and the long-range plans. And of course, they have the 2016 master plan in place. And with the funding this year with the state, they are pursuing an update of the master plan along with a detailed housing study that is getting underway. We're pleased to hear that they are working on very aggressively adding new housing so that they can begin to accommodate this gap that you see. And the problem is the timeline between right now with the addition of the 700 beds and the long range needs, especially looking at the condition of their existing dorms and so on. And so those numbers are really adding up in terms of the demand right now, largely due to market forces. The master plan accommodated about 33% or so of the enrollment, and it's jumping up very suddenly this year. And so that is clearly the cause of that this year. And we're delighted to hear that they're making plans in their master plan, but they have a ways to go in terms of accommodating the overall long-range needs, especially considering the existing condition of their existing housing.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is,
Yes.
can you hear me? Yes, this is Lawrence
Yes.
Pendleton. Yes, hi, thank you. I just wanted to emphasize a couple of things. I think that you've raised a legitimate point with respect to the issue of a student coming here and then what happens with them the next year. I think that Dean Stevenson and VP Allen have laid out plans related to transportation. And if there's more information that you need on that, I think that we can provide that. On security, related to the information that we would have on security, as well as Dean Stevenson can address our plans with respect to the meal plan. But as I look at it too, I think that we can meet those needs. But as I look at it too, the question becomes, what's the alternative? Dr. Glover has laid out with respect to our particular type of student profile. And these are students, first generation Pell eligible students who are coming to college, maybe the first in their family to do so. And they are looking to pursue what their dreams of coming and attending college. If we, as an alternative, basically say no to them, the question is what happens with these students and do we lose them forever? Which from our perspective, in terms of what TSU tries to do and reaching out to some of the most vulnerable students in this state and outside this state, that would be something that is inconsistent with our mission. But also I would emphasize the state's drive to 55, where we're trying to get more students, not less, enrolled in college and to help them matriculate. And I think that the financial aspect of this is an important one to determine, well, what do you plan to do next year from a funding standpoint? But we also are looking at continuing to assess that and doing whatever we need to do, whether or not it's a foundation, working with the legislature, so that we are able to accommodate these students and get them into school if this is something that they are pursuing to do, because of the nature of some of these students and what will occur if we somehow say no to them or they have to wait until sometime in the future. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. And I think you've made a very clear summary of the real quandary. I mean, this is an embarrassment of riches to some degree. It is a joyful thing that we have so many students wanting to come to Tennessee State University. But it is a quandary nonetheless. Are there any other immediate questions from the members today? I'm sorry, Mr. Treasurer.
You know, I join in saying that Tennessee State should be congratulated on the success you've had enrolling and matriculating students in all past years. I'm proud of what you do. Well, I would like to see sort of this proposal about the modular housing, because comptroller indicated one of the most concerning aspects of this is what happens in the out years. You know, you've shown how you could get through this year, maybe from cost and everything, but what happens next year and the year beyond, et cetera. You know, that's a key part of your solution to it. I haven't seen that in writing, you know, yet, or anything about what your details are and all that.
One thing I would like to say too, and again, thank you for that. We think this would be a great opportunity for our students. We actually had a chance to tour one of the sites that build the modular homes. They look like little apartments. And I think the students would really enjoy that. That would be something brand new to the students as well. Plus, Chairman, to answer your question about security, well, they would be on campus, right? We could house potentially 800 more students on the land that we do have and keeping our students safe. Even with the hotels, we still have a plan to keep the students safe if we had to go that route. Well, so at the end of the day, we'll definitely get you a plan for that. The discussion that we had with the vendors is they can do this pretty quickly. We have to have conversation with the state and involve you all as part of the authority to be. So again, for this, our plan is to reduce these hotels by half for this academic year. So that's
If I can, I'll ask anybody online if you could mute your phone, please. We've got some heavy feedback in the room. If everyone online will mute your phone, unless you're speaking, thank you. A quick question there. Let's say that you were to move to the modular housing in 6 months or so. What does that do in regard to the lease agreements you have with these hotels? Is there a penalty for early termination of that? I mean, I presume these hotels, for example, are not booking tourists in anticipation of your students being there. Are you saying there's zero financial penalty for early termination?
I'm going to let the Associate General Counsel answer that question, but I do want to state as it relates to the security, that's why we wanted to house our students and not have outside individuals being able to rent the rooms as well. So Attorney Letcher.
Yeah, thank you. We do have the option to terminate these leases with 30 days notice, with no penalties. We also have the option to terminate them immediately in the event that TSU needed to shut down its residential operations due to COVID, which hopefully won't happen, but who knows? So, so those are our two options to terminate early.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions here in the moment? Members, I'm going to make a motion that we defer consideration of these 11 lease agreements and 1 use agreement to a special called meeting to occur not before the week of August 8th. If that motion is approved, for those of you here from TSU, I would urge you to think about the questions that we've talked about today, to think about the treasurer's request of providing written information in regard to the potential plans that are there, to work with THEC, to work with the Board of Regents. For me, as comptroller, as I look at my fiduciary responsibility from a finance perspective, I love the wonderful burgeoning opportunity that these students have, but I couldn't vote for this today because of my financial responsibilities. So I hope that we're able to learn more in the next week or two that will allow us to move forward in a good way. So I'll make a motion that we defer these 12 items to a meeting not to occur before the week of August 8th. The meeting will, of course, be properly public noticed and processed by Sandy Thompson and the Office of State Government Finance and the Comptroller's Office. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. What about discussion or thoughts on that motion? None?
I have one.
Yes,
quick- I was
Commissioner.
just thinking about that. One thing I would like to see if we're going toward this modular thing is some kind of, as we're looking at the finances particularly, is some kind of an idea of maybe what the foundation might be able to do toward that. I think that would be helpful.
And if I can say as well as I'm doing the urging I'm doing, I would urge you to reach out and try to get in-person meetings with the Speaker of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, who are members of the State Building Commission that would be considering this soon after this step, if it were to be approved, so that you have that groundwork laid and so that the knowledge is more in the round. Because again, as I stated, my biggest concern is the kind of fait accompli situation it creates in the state budget and for the state, for the governor and for the state legislature. Any further questions or discussion? Sandy, if you'll call the roll on that motion.
Luke Wybrand,
Aye.
Alicia Fox, Commissioner Bryson.
Aye.
Councilor Mumpower,
Aye.
Secretary Hargit,
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion is approved, and Sandy Thompson will be in touch in regard to scheduling of that next meeting. Thank you all, whether online or in person today, for your work in answering these questions. This is very important, and we'll be back to it right away. Members, with that being said, that's the last item. The last item on our agenda today is adjournment. We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion to adjourn, properly seconded. All those in favor of adjournment, I guess we have to call the roll.
Luke
Sandy.
Wybrand,
Aye.
Alicia Fox, Commissioner Bryson.
Aye.
Councilor Mumpower.
Aye.
Secretary Hargit,
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very, very much.